Name is Ronnie. I am a donor egg mom in waiting, and what that just means is that I was told by my doctor. Let me turn the light up. And what that just means is I was told by my doctor that in order for my best chances to have a baby was through donor eggs. And so that's what I did. I went on a mission to find an egg donor. And when I was looking for egg donors, I found it very extremely hard to find anybody, I don't know about you, that looked like me, that was even going through the process or even making it seem like this is something that do we do, And so I went on a mission and I just started looking up YouTube, and then I started looking up Facebook. I went to every social media platform I could to find anybody that looked like me, and I started finding women. And then I realized like we were all spread out in one place. And I was like, is there a group for us? And they were like, no. And so I made a group. And I started a group probably back about 4 or 5 years ago. Originally, the group was Women of Color using donor eggs and donor embryos. And then from there, it grew from to everybody was starting to come in. And then they were like, well, what about if I want to do surrogacy? And I was like, oh. And then they were like, what if I wanted to do like just like an adoption kind of thing? Like there's no space for me. So I kind of revamped the group. I'm in my own personal journey. I had a donor and I got 12 beautiful embryos, 10 of them being normal. And my first transfer worked and I had an early miscarriage. And so I went back again and the second one failed. And then I was like, okay. And then the third one, I had another one and I got pregnant again, and I had an early miscarriage. And so then I started to get angry, and I started helping women, and I was like, well, I started telling them like how to get their baby, and I started telling them like how to, you know, how to find favorable ways, and I wasn't getting mine, and so I took a step back, and I started to say, well, maybe there's something bigger. So I came to TikTok, and I started doing interviews here, and I started like spreading the word. And then I started seeing other women who were using TikTok, like Heather, and I started following their journeys, and I started getting encouraged. And then I rechanged the whole name to Every Shade of Infertility, and regrouped and started a YouTube channel, started interviewing women. And the reason I did that because I wanted it to be a situation where every race, every color, every creed, everyone goes through infertility, not just one race. And I also want it to be every shade because every avenue is different. Every way to become a mom doesn't look the same way. So some of us are have babies naturally, but some of us need a little help. And
Mhm.
so that is basically my platform itself. And so far, I have been doing 30. This is my 36th interview that I've done. That women have trusted me to sit down with me and talk with me. And today I have Heather on here. And like I said, I found her on TikTok. And she said that she was told at the ripe old age of 14, probably wasn't thinking about children, that guess what? When you get older, that is not in the cards for you. So take it away, Heather, and let us know about your journey, and wherever you want to start, you can start.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I was 14. I had my mom take me to the doctor mostly because I was very short and I felt like something was wrong. Everyone thought I was just being too sensitive. Um, but they started monitoring my growth and kind of thinking that something was wrong. And so when I was like 12 years old, they started. Um, I did like regular blood work, and then when I was 14, I still hadn't started my period, which isn't that weird, but they
Right.
found out that I had them, and that's why. So the first thing he said to me was, "You're gonna need an egg donor if you ever want a baby." But in my mind, I'm like, "Well, now I know why I was so short." I didn't think much about it.
So can you walk us
Um,
through what Turner syndrome, for those who don't know actually what it is?
yeah. In a lot of cases with Turner syndrome, you are missing an X chromosome. So it's like in a lot of your cells, you have XO. There's different um, kinds of Turner syndrome. So I have what's called mosaic. So it's not in all my cells, But the main thing that's going to happen when you have Turner syndrome is delayed puberty. So I didn't get my period without medications. I don't know if I ever would have started. Um, but I was 16. Like I was on estrogen for a while, and then
Right.
finally, when I was, they got me on progesterone, and then I started my periods. But with that, I guess you don't produce eggs, or you lose them all when you're a baby when you have Turner syndrome.
So
Um, just another.
is that like POI where you get basically you don't
It's
ovulate, but you like getting like breakthrough bleeds or something like that, so it looks like a period, but maybe you didn't ovulate?
Yeah, you don't ovulate. You build up lining around your uterus and then it sheds. So that's all that's happening. But yeah, there's no egg that ovulates. So
Right.
um yeah. Uh so I did that for a while. Didn't think too much about it really until I got married. So when I got married, I was 27, 28, somewhere in there, and that's like a normal age to be thinking about kids. And I
Right.
really, even when we first got married, it didn't really hit me. But then my sister had her baby, and then I had a friend that got pregnant, and then another friend that got pregnant. Everyone was getting pregnant back to back. And then,
Right.
like, really out of nowhere, like a ton of bricks, it was like I couldn't be around like some of my best friends. And like I was like throwing baby showers, and like I would like burst into tears because
Yeah.
there would be pregnant people around me. Or my sister would ask me to watch her baby, and then I I almost couldn't do it.
Right.
Um, but I also didn't have a lot of information about um, IVF at the time,
Yeah.
so I was kind of under the impression that I would only have a 25% chance, and maybe it's going to fail. And I'm just not someone who, I guess, handles all that very well. But
Yeah.
after I was like, okay, I just need to go see what it's about. So I went to the doctor, and he was actually super optimistic, which probably helped um, my mindset. But he said that I had a 65% chance of success, maybe even higher if we did the PGS testing. So I
Right.
did it, and I would say financially we had help because my grandparents, they were very supportive, and they were able to help
Right.
fund this. So we're also very lucky. Um, so the clinic really walked us through everything and held our hand through finding the donor agency, and like they gave us the profile link so we could find someone. And again, like it just everything happened to kind of fall into place. I found someone who mostly looked like me. Um,
Right.
I mean, it isn't like perfect, but yeah, she mostly looks like me. Like if I go out with my kids, no one really thinks about it. But
Yeah.
my husband is Mexican, and his genes kind of took over anyway. So sometimes I get oh well, they look more like him, and I'm like,
Well, they should.
yeah. And then but then there's other people. Yeah, here's the dad. Yeah, and then there's been some people that are like, oh, they look nothing like you, and then it's like, ugh, I don't want to get into it, um,
Right.
but yeah, that's
So,
kind of
how
this.
does that make you
When
feel? How
when
does it
people say
make
they
you
don't look like
feel
me,
when people say that? Yeah.
I mean, it just makes me want to explain myself a little bit, but then like if you start
Right.
telling people they have questions, or they don't know how to react, like, oh, are you sad about this, or is this like normal? Do you want to share? Like it just gets kind of like heavy, I guess.
Murky.
So I
Yeah.
tend not to really get into it unless it's someone that like I trust, or someone that like I feel like they should know just because they should know that part of me. But yeah.
Right. But here's the thing
Hmm.
is what I tell everybody, like just because you have children that are biologically yours, they're not guaranteed to look like you either. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I have to let
Right.
women know, I'm like, if you knew this child was biologically yours and it came out and they said the same thing, the baby don't look like you, what would you say? They came out of me, like, I don't know what, kids are gonna look like how they're supposed to look like. I just never understand when people
Yeah.
say that either. Like, well, they don't look like you. Like, well, I didn't pay for that. I didn't pay for them to look like me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
This
mean,
is what's gonna be. I think I saw a girl. Um, I was looking at my For You page, and she was like, in a joking way, she said I gave birth to my mother's child because she had a baby and he looks identical to her mom. Like, could be her twin.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, so y'all can stop saying this baby look like me. He don't. He look like my mama, that kind of thing. It's like genetics is always funny. It's not anything that we can always guarantee that the children will look like, no matter genetically wise or not. But
Exactly.
I can tell the way that they were running around in the background that, they don't care. You feed them and clothe them, they don't really care at all. So
Yeah.
you said that you chose, so your clinic itself did not have egg donors themselves. They sent you to an agency. Can you walk us through like what that process is like between your agency with
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the clinic and the agency itself?
Yeah, they had two options of agencies that I guess they recommended. I suppose I could have found one privately, or if there was someone available that we knew, then I suppose I could have talked to someone else. But it might have just
Right.
I just figured it would be easier to go through them. So the one that we used was called Peas in a Pod, and the
Okay.
donor that we found was based in Valencia. Our clinic was in Rancho Cucamonga. So, I mean, we're all in California here, but basically she was like 2 hours away. So that added a little bit of an extra expense for travel time because we had to
Okay.
pay for her to go to the clinic and get her blood work and everything. So, yeah, finding, like you were mentioning earlier, finding someone in the vicinity is kind of a thing because they need to be close,
Right.
especially if you're doing embryo transfer because the day that they did her egg retrieval was the same day that my husband went in for his sample, and the I believe the embryos were created that same day.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
And how
So
many
it.
eggs did you get? Do you remember how many eggs she got?
Oh yeah, she was young at the time. She was 25, and they got 54 eggs from her. So the yeah we got yeah. Now they didn't fertilize all of them. I think that they ended up fertilizing 36. Not all of them were normal. So then, like, it kept going down and down. But for like what we paid for the PGS testing was, I'm assuming everyone in here would know what that is. But um, did you guys do
Some people
PGS
do.
testing?
So
Yeah.
so PGS testing is when they said we don't know. So when a woman goes in for an so they give her medication that stimulates her hormones and stimulates the follicles. Follicles then become at a certain millimeter, become eggs that they retrieve. So she may start off the cycle with my donor. I think she started off with like 80 something eggs. And then the same way I had a
Mhm.
good producer too. I think they ended up
Mhm.
getting about 50 something eggs, and then they only used 25. Um,
Mhm.
and you have to ask your clinic, basically, have to ask them because some of them will not. So my clinic will only do, no matter how many she does, they will do like
Mhm.
25 because they feel like at some point it's just like excessive, and then these women have all these embryos and they don't know what to do on them. And so, there's an ethical thing that they have that they're creating these embryos and they don't want to discard them because most people want two or three children. They don't want 10 or 12, so, um, and
Yeah.
so what happens is what she said is the number goes, and it goes down, down, down. Do you remember? So
Yeah.
she got 50 eggs and they did 36. Do you remember how many fertilized of the 36?
I think we got down to like 12, and then they did the extra testing so that they can see like the
Right,
gender. So we got to pick
right.
the gender, and like there was some that came with like a chromosome. Like it's mostly to
Yep,
check for like Down syndrome and like chromosome disorders, things like that.
right.
Um, it was also a way to know the gender. So it helps. It increases chances too if you do all that testing. Um, yeah, so we did it, and I think that brought us down to like 12 embryos. I thought,
That's still
but
good.
I think I got yeah, I think I got mixed up though because when we did our second one, I thought we had more than that, and I think they said we only had 8. So maybe
Okay.
something had happened like during because we had a few after I had my first baby. We had them on ice for 2 years. She was 3 by the time my second baby was born. Um, and then we discarded or donated. I can't. I think we discarded the rest of them because we
Right.
didn't really want any more to do. So
Right.
yeah.
And that's an option that families can do. Some people take their embryos. So PGS testing is just like you said, making sure that your embryos are normal. They have 46 chromosomes. So sometimes they'll come back a mosaic. Um, Sometimes they'll come back high complex, which means like this is not a good embryo. Um, so there's different things that will happen that you'll get now. Some people keep their abnormal ones just because science is different and science changes. And so um,
Mm-hmm.
my embryos that I had were abnormal that were low mosaic. So they told me to keep mine because they said there's still a chance. Now I'm curious because you did have Turner syndrome. Was
Mm-hmm.
that another reason why you wanted to test as well? Is that something that can be tested when they
Um,
do?
they can. I mean, a little like side note about Turner syndrome is, I guess that they call us like miracle babies or butterflies because any embryo that develops in the womb that has Turner syndrome, a lot of times they will miscarry on their own. So
Oh
those of
wow.
us that make it, it's like it's very special that we're here. So I'm
Right.
assuming that they can test for that. Yeah. But no, I just wanted to do it just to increase our chances and just to do everything that we can. Um,
Okay.
and
Do
I
you
was very
remember
much
how
in
much it
like
costs
go for the
do you
testing
remember how much
or
everything
just total.
costs? Just total.
I'm sure it was more than like I want to say it was like 40,000, probably somewhere in there between
Okay.
30 and 40.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like with that, you're paying for like every uterus scan that you do along the way, all the medications that you do along the way. The donor gets paid. Um, what else are we paying for? The transfer day, like the surgery. Um,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of stuff. And it adds up. Oh, and then the lawyer fees too, because every time you use an egg donor, there's a lawyer involved and there's a contract that's signed. And um, I think that was kind of a big chunk of that money too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And probably the reason why is because you did the agency because I did it with my clinic and so all I did so my agreement was between the clinic and not really the donor
Mm-hmm.
itself. I had an anonymous donor itself too, but
Mm-hmm.
mine was done with them, and so I just signed out the contracts with them, and I guess they had the contracts with her. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think probably because you had the agency and stuff is probably why it was slightly different. But that's good to know for people who want to do that route because and there's to ask questions when you're doing this because my situation, how I got my donor, and her situation are two totally different things that I didn't have to go through. I
Mm-hmm.
had insurance, and so my employer picked up the majority of mine, which made it more affordable. But yeah, when you're coming out of pocket and when you set yourself with so many different, and I tell people, and we can talk about this too, it's like when you actually pick your donor, um, do not have a long list of she needs to have this because you can't find you in anybody else. That's what makes us individuals. So if you're looking for
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's I'm 5'2" and light skinned and long hair and all this kind of stuff, like those features are not like it's still not guaranteed that this child will look like me. Um, so be honest, and things. There are some things that definitely you want to be non-negotiable, and then there's some things that you're gonna probably have to let go. Whereas there's some things when you're picking your donor and looking at her like that you had like some must-haves.
Mm-hmm. For me, I honestly didn't. I kind of went off of gut. Um, the way it worked out, we did find someone who actually did look a lot like me, but that was kind of just coincidence.
Okay.
We had it boiled down to two. two girls, and the other one was actually a completely different race than me. So like it would have been obvious had I like been out and about with her. Um, and it would have been my choice, but it what was funny is when we went to the clinic and I said, "Oh, we picked a donor," and he said, "Okay, well we need to review who you picked to see if it's an appropriate um, choice." So that kind of surprised me a little bit that like we want who sometimes it's gonna be like like for example you have like religious beliefs that you want to
Right.
um connect with your donor. Like there's different reasons. It's not always the color of your skin.
Right.
So, and in my mind, it almost would have been easier if this child has, obviously dark skin and I'm obviously very light skinned. I don't have any explaining to
Right.
do. Everyone will know. I can kind of be honest about it. But
Right.
that's not the way it worked out. He was kind of like, oh no, you picked a really good donor. So I just thought I would throw that out there. Like sometimes clinics get a little bit weird about trying to find someone that looks like you too. Like, yeah.
That is like crazy because like I don't know reason why I think that they did that is because you went maybe through an agency and they just wanted to maybe look at her profile and see like if she was a good candidate. But I mean, if she was with an agency, you would figure that they would do their due diligence, especially if they're charging so much to say like this is a good candidate. But yeah, I would
Yeah.
definitely feel taken aback. Like,
Yeah.
let's make sure that you pick the right one. I'm like, what does that
Yeah.
mean? Because and what I tell people too is, do pick three. Like, if you have three, don't just pick one because they could go talk to that girl and she could say no. Like just because you pick someone doesn't mean that they're gonna be because these people have lives. So when you're especially if they're not frozen eggs and they're doing and I had the same thing. I had a fresh donor. I had three. Um, the first one I actually got the first one that the one that I want my top choice. The second one was like she wanted extra money, you know.
Hmm.
Um and then the third one she wasn't going to do she wasn't donating anymore. So definitely have more than one choice and do not have your heart set on one person because
Yeah, I know.
when they ask them, they especially for a fresh donation, they could say no and then you're stuck like you've
Hmm.
been dreaming about this like person and then they like yeah I have they're in some they're young, they're in school, they're they have things to do, it may not be the right time or they may have had a bad experience previously, like we just don't know. So when you're
Yeah.
picking a donor, definitely have more than one option when it comes to it. But I definitely, I mean, maybe they should have chosen better words. I mean, especially like when you're going through something like picking an egg donor, like, like I'm already, no matter what, you still have certain feelings about it and it could trigger
Yeah.
something that you wasn't expecting.
Yeah. So I that was just well, I think it's also it was a little bit triggering because like kind of as a side note to the whole story is when I found out when I was 14 I would need an egg donor. The first thing he said is, "Well, if you have a sister, that's the closest it would be to like you. So,
Right.
you may want to ask her." And my sister she is her own person, and I would never force anyone to do anything they're not comfortable with. But she
Right.
basically never even considered it and looked for reasons not to do it.
Oh,
So,
wow.
um, so that it was a little bit upsetting, and and she was the one that had the baby too, which is like what got me wanting a baby in the first place. So in my
Right.
mind, before I like really thought about donors, I kind of thought, well, if I do it, it's going to be because my sister's a donor, but she wouldn't do it. And then after I was still so upset, like I was like, okay, we'll just find somebody else, and we did. So
Yeah.
I mean, we're still cool, and like her baby was only born like 2 years before my daughter was, and they're really close, so it's all good. But yeah, that was a little bit thing like it would not have been an appropriate donor. It's like, well, everyone else said no, like you're saying, like
Right.
it's their
Right.
not forcing anyone to do anything. So like if I pick someone, like just let me pick that person.
Yeah. Someone said now
Yeah.
that you have your babies, like, do you have any regrets, like your sister saying no?
No, no regrets. I mean, I think everything kind of happens like not in like a super spiritual way, but everything happens like my kids wouldn't be who they are if she was the donor, you know?
Right,
And
right.
they're very special. If anyone ever sees like the video that I had posted about how I feel after using an egg donor, I feel like the world is a better place with them being who they are, and everything worked out the way it was supposed to. So
Exactly. Yeah.
there's
Um,
no regret at all.
we do have some egg donor moms and that have come here and they've said the same thing. Like these were meant to be my children. You
Yeah,
know, I can't. I'm happy that my eggs didn't work, or I'm happy that my path led me to these children because these are my children, and I wouldn't want any other children than the ones that they have. Everyone feels the
yeah,
same way. I have yet to interview anyone who says, "I wish I didn't do this route," or "I wish," all right. They may have said, "I hate that I had to do all this because it's expensive," but
mhm,
the love that they have for their children, and even sometimes too, I don't know, this is for you, they often forget that they are donor conceived children, they're just your children.
mhm, for sure. I try to keep it in mind, and it's something I think, especially my mom, almost had a hard time with like the reality of it. Like these are
Right,
not my biological kids; they never will be. So we have to kind of honor that. So,
right,
like when we talk about, well, how are we going to tell them? Are we going to tell them? I was always like, of course we're going to. I mean, like, how would you feel if you grew up and you found out that like your mom wasn't your biological mom? Like, what if you needed something? So
right.
I told her I'm going to tell my kids, and I think she's still kind of like whenever like it comes up for whatever reason, like oh they're not biologically yours. She goes, well you're still the mom. You're still the mom. I'm like I know, of course, like of course,
Listen, listen,
yeah.
I get the bills every month that say I am, so
Yeah, exactly. They call me mom. They came out of my belly. Like they, I am their mom, but I'm also they also didn't come from my eggs, and like let's just give some respect to that, you know.
right,
So
right.
I told
And
my
there's
older one.
nothing and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why some people it's I call it a better version of adoption because you get to carry, you get to have all these stories, and so you get to at least feel some sort of way of being a part of their you are the reason why they're here. So
Mm-hmm,
egg donors, it's just tissue. That does
mm-hmm,
not guarantee a live birth, but your body is what nourished them and fed them. You
mm-hmm,
know, um, it takes a lot of mechanics to make a house, but
mm-hmm,
you are the person who makes it the home. You know, is
mm-hmm.
kind of like the analogy that I use.
Yeah.
Is anybody can make these things, but you're the one who builds the character. Um, do you see like different similarities or quirks in your children that maybe that they've gotten from you?
Mm-hmm.
Understand
Oh
that we are
yeah.
influenced more by from our environment than our genetics.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure. Yeah, my daughter is definitely just like me. Like the way she talks, even if like I kind of have to get a little bit firm with her about something. Like, what was it? The other day, she didn't want to finish her dinner, and I was kind of getting on her case. Like, you gotta finish your spaghetti. You gotta finish. And then the next day, I got distracted and I was on my phone, and she goes, "You need to finish your dinner, mommy. You have to finish." So she definitely picks up on all of that. So, and it's so funny. And then, I mean, even food seems to be the biggest thing, like how they're like me. Like, my son is the pickiest eater of all time. And he won't eat spaghetti, he won't eat mac and cheese. All he basically eats is like only McDonald's chicken nuggets and pepperoni and bacon. Like, he's and apparently I was a picky eater as a child too. My mom had to force feed me because I was such a picky eater. So yeah, it's funny these things how like how stubborn he is, and you know how uh I guess righteous my girl is. They definitely take after me.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I have a bonus daughter, and I've been in her life since she was 5. And I remember one day, like she had a friend come over, and she was like, "Do you want something to eat?" And she was like, yeah. And I heard her, and she said, I mean, when I tell you, she sounded, she's like, well, what do you want? She's like, we have chicken, we have this, and we have that now. And she said, how many do you want? And the girl said, I wanted like 10. And she said, I'm going to give you five. And she was like, I'm not saying you can't have more, but I want you to start with this first. And the way I was so embarrassed, like I was like, she sounded just like me. And she was like, I'm not saying that you can't have any more, but we're gonna start with this just in case like you get full. And but you can, I'm not telling you can't have any more. I'm just saying we're gonna start with this. And I just looked, I was like, Lord, that's my child. I did not give birth to her, but she is
Yep.
my child. And I was like, oh my. But, you know, because that's how I'm with her. I'm like, girl, you asking for a lot, and then you eat two bites, and then you don't want no more. So how about we start with this, and then we graduate our way up? Or she said, I wanted some more. She said, did you drink any water? And the girl said no. And she said, okay, I'm going to need you to drink some water, and then I'm going to need you to wait 15 minutes, and then come back and tell me you're hungry. I was like, I don't know where she got that from. She got it from me. And that's what I, you know, and people see us, they've seen me with her, and they'll see us together, and they would never know that we are not mom and daughter just because of the relationship that we have together. And you know, I tell everyone that kids come out and they're not supposed to love you because they came out of you. You know, there's a level of respect that you get from raising and nourishing them and being there for them is the reason why they're bonded and love to you.
Mhm.
And that is the beauty of being a parent, that it's not looks the same way. Being a parent doesn't look the same way.
Mhm.
And when you do those things, if you know, and I'm glad you're talking about sharing with them at the appropriate age, because your daughter is how
Mhm.
old now?
She is 6, and I told her when she was 3. Mind you, she was kind of a mature 3. Like she was actually
Right,
like playing a game on her iPad, and I was like, I have to tell her before. I want her to just always know. Like I don't want
right,
her to like have any memory of not knowing. So I told her really before she got the concept. But I remember like she was playing a game on her iPad, and I was like, well, there's eggs. I found this book, and if anyone needs it or whatever, like I can send a link to this book. It's I what is it? The Pea That Was Me, and it uses like appropriate language. It's like sperm and eggs, and sometimes mommy's eggs don't work. So I got it for her. I explained it to her, and we read the book several times. So she's very well aware she came from an egg donor. But she says it's what makes her special. Like she knows that it's a special thing. And like she thinks it's like she knows that it's like kind of a good thing, and like she wouldn't be here without it. So I guess when we were in the process, I had a little bit of fear that like she would kind of think as of um, the donor mom is like their mom. And
right,
I think in some cases when you're not honest with them and you don't build that trust with them, then
right,
I've seen some people say in these forums that they'll call their birth mom or the carrying mom their social mom. So I was a little bit worried about some like weirdness with that. I guess I don't know how it's going to be when they get older, but I'm just doing my best to be honest, and we still talk about it. And even right now, I told her, well, I'm going to be on the phone because everyone wants to hear the story about how you came from an egg donor. And she was really excited. She kept saying, oh, you have 10 more minutes. You have to go on your call. So,
but you
yeah.
know, growing up with my mom, and I like the way you've done that, is you made it like that this is your superpower, you know, like, and if you can use the right language, they think like they are extra totally special because of this superpower. And I remember like my mom would do the same thing. She was like, she was like, because of, and she would say my last name, she was like, that's what makes you special. And so I always would like grow up knowing like, oh, because I was, this is my last name, is that not that I was better than anybody, but no one could tell me that I was less than, because my last name was this, and that meant I came from, and that's what she said, you came from good stock. This is why you are the way you are, because you came from the best, the cream of the crop. And
Mhm.
children, no matter, and then till this day, like I believe in, like, you can't tell me what to do because this is what I am, and I come from good stock. Like I come from the best of the best, and I
Mhm.
know who I am, and that's what you're empowering her to know who she is
Mhm.
unapologetically. That's who she is, no matter what.
Mhm.
And that's what we have to do for our children, because we are the ones to boost their egos and boost their confidence, because when they go out into the world and somebody tells them that they're nothing, you've told
Mhm.
them that they're always, that they're special all their life, no matter how their story began. She is special, and she knows
Mhm.
she's special, and that's and that is something that a good mom does, is make their
Mhm.
kids feel like they are who they are, and that is nothing wrong with that. And she's going to grow
Mhm.
up knowing, one, it's not going to be a big deal because she's going to be in a room where people have, two moms and two dads, and in some sort of way probably are donor conceived, just maybe not the way she is. And it's like, oh, it's not a big deal because my friend has two moms, or and that kind of thing. So I love that you've already started at the age of 3, and you
Mhm.
started that story, because now it's not weird. So when she gets older, you're just changing the language, making it a little bit more complex, and that
Yeah.
now you're not nervous because you've been telling her since she was 3 what's been going on.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
do you
She's
have
just
pictures
it's
of
just always been
your do you have pictures of your
of
egg
my
donor
daughter.
that she's, yeah, do they see them?
Yes. Yeah, I have like a whole the part of like what my clinic's process was is we had to go to a counseling session, just one.
Yeah.
I guess I mean I don't know if like that's everyone's story that's had to do this, but
Okay.
the yeah. So the therapist we went to suggested, well, she was very like generous about it. She goes, "Are you going to tell them?" And we were always like, "Yes, we're going to be honest." And she was kind of like, "Okay, I'm not telling you what to do, but that's the best thing to do." Kind of
Right.
like that. And she said, "Keep the file, like print her file and have her like whatever pictures you have them available. And when she starts to get curious, you will have them ready for her." So I took it to
Right.
heart, and I have that in my files. I have a binder of her picture and whatever information I have about her. And I keep a picture like saved in my phone, and like I have it like in my favorite. So if she ever wants to see it, and if for any reason we scroll past it on my phone, she goes, "Oh, that's the donor." Like she knows just like with
That's who
one
she
glance, like,
is.
"Oh, that's it." Yep. Mhm.
Right.
So
And
she
it's like
knows.
not, it's not a big deal or anything, because you've been
Yeah.
talking about it, that she's like, oh,
Hmm.
it's normal for her. That's her normal.
Yes.
And I love to
Yes.
hear that. I love to hear that.
Hmm.
And then you have your son. Have you started with him yet?
He is gonna be 3 in September. So we haven't really talked about it. I haven't put as much thought into like having the conversation. One, because he's a boy, and like I just don't. I know that girls take things a little bit more to heart and hold on to things a little bit
Right.
more. I mean, I still have to tell him, but in my mind, he's gonna kind of hear the conversation because we're gonna be talking about it with his sister.
Right.
And he's talking. He's not as advanced as his sister was. So, um, when he's like maybe almost 4 next year, I'll bust that book back out and maybe try to have the conversation. But I'm expecting his
Yeah.
sister to kind of do a lot of the explaining for me because she can kind of tell
Right.
him in a language that makes sense. So, to like in kid language, you know.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm kind of assuming because they're very close. I mean, I think that they can kind of feel this like special bond that they have. Because they are from the same donor, that it's all from the same batch. So I think that it's almost like they know because they're just obsessed with each other and they're really good to each other. So
I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I watched some of your content, and I was one video that you were talking about, and you were saying that someone said, or maybe it was a movie that you watched, and they called you selfish for using egg donor. And I loved your combat for that. Can you share
Yeah.
that, what you said?
I can't. Oh, the movie was called Exploitation, and it is a very. I mean, anything that has to do with egg donors, I'm going to try to watch just because it's like we're such a small community, you know.
Right.
So I want to try and be involved with like any kind of media that I see. And the whole movie ended up being about how when you use an egg donor, you're exploiting the women, the young, healthy women that are donating their eggs, and how dangerous it can be for their health. Um, and then they ended it saying that um, don't do it, and it's selfish on anyone to ask. So yeah, they used the word selfish, which was very triggering. But I just don't want people to give in to that propaganda and this media, and I don't know why there is any kind of media out there to talk people out of donating eggs. But like we were just saying, families come in all shapes and sizes. There are all kinds of options, and I think it's really hurtful to take this option away, because there's a lot of living people like my kids that are only exist because there are women that are willing to donate their eggs. I mean, as it is, my sister, and no one's holding a gun to her head, and any donor can say no. No one's making you. They have their right. It is their body, and no one's exploiting them. Um, and just as a side note, they're getting paid, so it's probably advantageous to them in some way. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. Um,
Right.
so yeah, it's just it was a really triggering movie for me to watch. So I was just I kind of posted that, just wondering if anyone else had seen it that had the same reaction, or yeah.
I haven't seen it. I kind of want to see it now because when you said, I was like, I've never, and because I try to do too. Anytime I see a movie that deals with, especially third party reproduction, I try to watch it just to see the perspectives. I tell anybody if you've not watched, um, I went back and rewatched The Practice that was on ABC. And they
Mhm.
talked a lot about infertility where I didn't realize it all. And then like now when I went back and like rewatched it, um, it tells a lot of great information that was, from what I understand, for what I know, is pretty accurate. Um, because I remember Addison, she like I didn't know any of the things she was talking about back then, but then I watched it when I was going through it, and she was talking about her age. She was like, my AMH is low, and this and my
Oh.
and she was saying like her FSH is high, and I was like, whoa, like I was like, oh, she's like going through like I knew what that meant, like she could not have kids, and I knew that. And I was like, it was a great show. If you haven't watched it, I encourage anybody to watch it. It's a great show about IVF processes and different things that happen with women, and even like some people got pregnant and had like certain issues. So I always watch those different type of shows when it comes to that, and I always refer to certain sitcoms that talked about donating your eggs or freezing your eggs because it's just not something that was back when I was younger was really talked about. But now they're starting to do shows that have egg donation and that thing and bringing it more to light, so it makes it a lot easier for people to talk about. Even like you, when I see things
Yeah.
like on TikTok and I watched something
Mhm.
and she was saying, just so you know, you donate your eggs, you're like the biological mother and you're their mom. And I politely wrote in the post and was like, no, they're not. Like, no, they're not. This is tissue and it does not
Yeah.
guarantee a baby. So they're not their mother. Yes, they do have their DNA profile, but they are not their
Mhm.
mother. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
giving even, and I'll just be truthful and honest, giving birth does not make you a mom. Like that just means that you had a kid. That does not necessarily, the term mom is someone
Mhm.
who, there are a lot of women out here who are considered mothers and not genetically related to those children. It is the
Mhm.
love and the nurturing that you bring that makes you a mom. Giving birth does not make you a mom. And I will stand firm when I say that. Um,
Ooh.
because they're not guaranteed genetically and not to love you. So that
Mhm.
is earned. And that's with anybody. They are
Yeah.
people, they are human beings, and they respond to love and nurturing just like you do. So
Mhm.
but yeah, that and that sends me in a those things send me in a tailspin when people say that is you're their mother and this, because guarantee you, my like your egg donor who got paid, she is not thinking about them eggs that she donated for. She is not thinking about that. I know that you said you discarded your other ones, and that's definitely a choice that everybody has. I don't tell anybody what's right or wrong because you have to do what's best for your family. Some people do take their
Mm.
remaining embryos and they donate it. What I'm curious to know is, does your agency let you know if like your egg donor donates again and they're other live birth? So like, do you know if they have what's called dibblings, which means that they have the same donor, maybe just the other part isn't? Do you know about that, or did they let you know?
Yeah, that's kind of why I'm fairly certain we discarded them. I think originally when we had talked about what to do with our embryos when we were done, we thought about donating them to another couple. But like it's good to bring that up because I know that at the time that we did the transfer, she did have her own baby. I think she had twins. And she had babies very young by accident. I think she was like a 15-year-old mom, but she was very like learned from it and was very responsible and she was going to school and stuff. But she donated, I think, two, um, like she had two live births before us. So yeah, they do have, what, dibblings? Is that dibblings out there?
Dibblings, yeah, because
They do.
same, they have the same donor, but they're not siblings, but they do
Yeah,
have,
I wouldn't
so that's
really
what
say
they
that.
say. They call it dibblings, right?
I've never heard that before. I love that. They do have them from what I know before. As far as after, if she donated again and it was a live birth, I don't know. So that's kind of
You
why I
know,
chose to discard because it was already kind of a complicated situation with her having like kind of relatives out there that we don't know about. And I just feel like I didn't want to complicate it by donating our embryos and having like more siblings. And as it is, the situation is already a little bit complicated. So we did
right.
end up I discarding. I think that there was also an option to donate to science, which if that was there, we might have done that. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, you
So
do have that option. You have the option to discard, you have the option to donate for science, which is not, a bad thing either. It just helps the embryologists practice on real live embryos, and so they don't make a mistake on the real ones. So that is still an option that they can do. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with that either, that option. And then, the other option is to, donate them, because it doesn't guarantee if you donate them there's going to be live births. It just means that you're just giving somebody an opportunity to have a baby, and you're the best that you can. So
yeah.
there's several options, and again, there's no right or wrong way, no right or wrong answer. You don't get an F on the quiz because you didn't pick the right one. You picked the right one that was best for you, and that's the way we have some moms who discarded. They didn't want to deal with it, and then we have moms who donated. We've had some that donated to science too as well. So with anything, I think you just have to do whatever is best for you and your mental health,
Yeah.
because that is what I'm not gonna see you ever again. So it's no me for me to judge. I'm not gonna see you, and nobody's gonna who's gonna be on the platform is gonna see you again either. And you have to live with whatever decision that you have to live with, no matter what. And there's some people who regret it, and some people who don't. But that's just the way it is. So I know
Yeah.
you've always asked women if they have any questions, or anything like that. So I am coming to you. I have been told I need an egg donor, and I am wanting to know, is my baby gonna love me?
Of course. Of course, the baby will love you. It is not a question. You give birth, you're the one feeding them and taking care of them, and that's for sure nothing to be concerned with. So I would get that out of your head.
And what else, other advice would you give me with starting the process of taking this route?
um, Start with your doctor. That's always what I would say as far as like if you're just starting, like just listen to the doctors and I guess the best way I can explain probably the biggest piece of advice is like no, have a lot of self-awareness in the situation. Like you have to be realistic about your body, about what your body is prone to, if it's a good option for you, what your beliefs are, and if it's in alignment. Um, like everything kind of needs to fall into place. So if something feels misaligned or something's not working out, then um, don't don't push through if it doesn't feel right. Know yourself and be realistic and stay persistent if you decide to push on.
Amen, amen. And I know we've already talked about it, but my last question for you is um your feelings of being a donor egg mom on a day-to-day basis. How do you feel? Do you feel any different? Do you know you don't have any biological children, but do you think you feel any different if the children were biologically yours?
I don't know any different. There's, I will say that there's like that little note in the back of my mind that just because I try to be very realistic and just try and honor the reality of the so like that wouldn't be there. But my kids would also be extremely different human beings. So um,
Right.
I it's I mean I'm always going to be aware, but that doesn't make it doesn't make me sad. It doesn't weigh on me really. If anything, it just makes me feel kind of defensive when I see stuff like that movie we were just talking about, like exploitation or sometimes with all of like the political conversation around IVF lately. Like in one of my posts, someone was saying that IVF is evil, like straight up saying that like anyone who does it is evil, because of the embryo process. But people just forget that that is just how IVF works, and like I was saying before, it's some people's only option, and the goal is to have a baby that is alive. So it's a numbers game. There's a lot of embryos that need to be created during IVF, and yeah, not all of them are going to end up a live birth, but like we need to give women like us a fighting chance to even be a mother if that's what we feel called to do. So I would just like that part of the conversation for people to realize how nuanced women's bodies are and how
Yeah.
nuanced the situation is when it comes to reproductive health. And there's always complicated reasons why women choose to do this, and it's never our first choice. If we could just easily have babies on our own, and we would, but that's not the case for a lot of women, and that's why we all come together and do stuff like this so we can hear each other's stories and know that we're not alone.
And I'm glad that you mentioned this. It's like if I didn't wake up saying, "Oh, I wanted to spend 20, $30,000 to have a baby." I didn't wake up that way to say that. I really didn't. If
Mm-hmm.
I could have got pregnant just the regular natural way, like I would have taken that option. Unfortunately that wasn't in the cards for me. And so that is what my route is. And for some of us that's our only option, to be a mom. And
Yeah.
I think that you also had a post that said just adopt, and I was like, you just adopt. Like the adoption just ain't for people who are. I want that to be. I want to put that on a T-shirt. Adoption is just not for people who cannot have, for women who are infertile. Adoption is for everyone. Like we do not have to just adopt. That is not something that you should tell anybody. If you are thinking of saying that, if you wanted to say that to anybody who is struggling to get pregnant, just adopt is not, because you know how much it costs to just adopt. It costs $100,000. You actually save money by going the route you did. So it can
And not
cost
only that, like
anywhere.
the waiting game. Yeah, I couldn't imagine trying to adopt. I mean, it's right. Again, this is what I was saying earlier about know yourself and know your situation. And there's some people for their personal beliefs, adoption would probably be the better option. And maybe that is for some people. But like you can't just tell people just adopt or like act like it's a better alternative to IVF because it's not. It's not a good option for everyone. So yeah.
Exactly, exactly. and you would have missed out on some
Mm-hmm.
things. And there's nothing wrong. I have a really good girlfriend. She's a foster mom, and she's got her own kids, and she's fostered a lot of them. And she will be the first to tell you that that is not a route for everyone. It is not something that everyone should do. And
Mm-hmm.
and even still, like, that's her struggle too. I have another girlfriend. She has two children via adoption. The first one, she was like, it was easy. It was a walk in the park. I was
Mm-hmm.
at church, and this lady told me about a friend. That it was one of those stories where a friend of a friend was looking to adopt, to give her baby up for adoption, and that kind of worked out for her. She was like, it was
Yeah.
easy peasy. She was there for her birth. The girl gave it over. She signed the paperwork. They had a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of trouble getting the biological father to do because they couldn't find him, but he eventually, when they came to him, he signed it because he saw that his daughter was, in a healthy situation, so he ended up signing. But the second one,
Mm-hmm.
she was like, I'm going through it. They actually had to, they actually went overseas and did that, and he has special needs. And so you're getting yourself into a long situation too when you're just adopting that you just don't know. Um,
Mm-hmm.
some of these kids that are in this situation that need to be adopted come from not the good situations home, so you deal with behavioral issues. It's just not
Mm-hmm.
just a walk in the park when you're saying just adopt. So you have to be signed up for that. And then also too, depending on your state, there's a waiting period. And I've had women that gone through that they've had a child for 30 days or 60 days, and then the biological parent, because the goal is to reunite them with their biological, and they say they want them back. And so now you have to deal with that emotion of giving children back. And I don't know about you, but when I love something, and I don't like to give it back.
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? So
Yes, you do.
I took that. The donor route was for me because I was like, I don't like to give something back because you here and you live here, and I've been feeding you for whatever. You mine.
Yeah.
What you mean I got to give you
Absolutely. And
back?
that's the
No.
thing. I think legally the birth mother always has the right to change their minds, like
Right.
last minute. Or they can come back and, have feelings about it after the fact. And then like it's like this whole other like lifelong party that is going to be involved. So I mean if your people want to do the just adopt route, then they have to think about it's like a whole other ballpark of problems that like infertility is such a problem in and of itself, but when you're adopting, it's
So
like,
right.
yeah. So, yeah,
Two
it would
totally
definitely,
different, yeah, situation.
yeah, it's not for everyone. So, yeah, it's all the conversation around infertility is, we definitely need more conversations like this to open up people's eyes to it. Yeah.
And every time I do have these conversations, it's somebody in the audience or somebody who watches, and they always say, those are things that I didn't think of. And since I've kind of went public on this platform, I've had people like come up to me or say things to me like, you know, did you know I used to do somebody's, like, they do they clean their pools, and it was like this whole time I didn't know that their kids were IVF babies, like, and they just happened to
Mhm.
be talking, and I was talking about, because he was I did a panel on miscarriage, and so he was saying that he was doing this interview on miscarriage and like from a male perspective of like how that feels. And then that's when they said, yeah, we went through infertility and all this stuff. He's like, I've been doing that pool for so many years. I never knew that because people just don't talk about it because it's just like you said, when you open yourself up to these things and you put yourself on a platform, then people ask questions. And then sometimes you're like, you know what? I just don't want to answer them. Like, they're my kids. That's all they're my kids. Just like everybody else, they're my kids. And, I don't want to explain myself of, um,
Yeah.
even having love. Well, what about what their real mom is? I am their real mom. Like that person, that
Yeah.
lady who has her own kids, she thinking about them kids that she has. She is not thinking about the eggs she donated. And maybe she has a thing of like how many kids are out there, but it's not something probably that is, you know, stuck in the back of her. And I wanted to, I saw an egg donor. I hope she reaches back out to me. I messaged her. She actually is in the same situation. She donated her eggs, and now she has a child, and want to
Mhm.
bring her on to say like how she's navigating that, and people say, well, what about her other siblings? And but she was adamant, said those are not her, they're not my
Yeah.
child's siblings. They just share the
Yeah.
same, partially the same genetics. So having that language and telling people what that looks like is definitely something that we need to continue to educate people on. That, you know, just like with anything, yes, they are genetic related, but if they walked beside each other and walked in the mall or whatever, they wouldn't know who each other were. They would just be two
Yeah.
totally different strangers.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm. I will say
well,
it
you
is
have
kind
me.
of funny. My brother was in Valencia where our egg donor was, and she took a picture. She's like, I think we met your doppelganger, and she like took a picture of this girl who looks like me. I'm like, is that my egg donor? So like, there's kind of this weird thing. Where, like, I always feel like, oh, is that her? Because I never seen her in a picture of her. I'm like, like without like the posed pictures that I got, like that could be her. So like that is kind of a weird thing that happens. It's like, oh, like is that her? But um but at the time I had the option to meet her, and at the time I think I was still dealing with my feelings about it, and I said no. But it like now that I've matured and kind of I guess more so come to accept it, I would have met her if I was doing it now. So I guess if
Right,
any for anyone asking like if there's any regrets, like that is kind of the one. Like I wish I would have met her because
right.
she did something big for us, and I don't take it for granted. So
Yeah.
I do.
I hope one day to meet mine, at least, especially my donor was also anonymous too. We do have the option that um, you know, when the child turns 18, the clinic can reach out to her, and, if she
Mm-hmm.
wants to, be open to meeting my child,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I made sure of. But I tell
Mm-hmm.
with anybody, because we have women, I'm in another group and we've had women, they're like, oh, I wanted to meet my egg donor, and now they're upset because the egg donor's not responding to them. I'm like, people have feelings and they change, and even though they are willing to do things, like just like it's a lot for
Mm-hmm.
you on your end, sometimes it could be a lot for them on their end.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't want to see that, maybe they don't want to see the kids, or maybe they just want to know like this is just a part of the thing that they did and that's it. You don't have to meet
Yeah.
people where they are. And I was like, who's to say that this lady who said she was open to it now when she was 25 and now she's like 45, 50 or whatever, that she wants to meet
Mm-hmm.
this child, or maybe she changed her
Mm-hmm.
mind and she does, like we just don't know. These are open-ended questions that we really don't have the answers to, because you're dealing with
Mm-hmm.
human beings and human feelings. And even like now, if you reach out to the clinic and say you want to meet her now, she may say no, even though she wanted to do it like when it first initially happened. But I just say be
Yeah.
exploratory. If you just ever want to meet her, what do you have to lose? What
Mm-hmm.
can she say no? I mean, it's like, um,
Yeah.
if you ever wanted to open it, I say go for it.
Well, I'll throw it out there when my older one's 18, because it was the same thing. Like they can contact when they're 18. So if she's
Yeah.
curious, then we'll definitely help her with that. Because it's not a door I want to close, and I don't want to like get wrapped up in my feelings about it. And like I've made peace with it. So yeah, I will help her, and I will be there, and I want it to be like a happy thing if it ever comes to
Yeah.
that. And if she says like, well, she's a stranger, like why would we meet her? Like I don't know her, you know. Yeah.
And it may just be like you don't even have to like actually meet her. It could be like maybe like a FaceTime call. Because some people just like, I'm just curious to see, um, what she looks like or something. But I don't know about you, but like some people, like I want to meet my donor, but I don't want to meet her because I like who I have her in my head. Like, did you make your own
Oh yeah.
personality about your egg donor, like how she is, and then I feel like she's gonna say something and it's like not gonna be quite right. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because in my mind, she's perfect. She's very cutesy. She's got, but she because her pictures were all very bubbly. So after I talked to her and she just seemed like a miserable person, that would just really upset me. Like how I thought that you were for my child, and then you're not like that. So you know what? I'm
Yeah.
like sometimes it's just I want to keep my image of what I have in her in my head. I like who I tell people that I'm like I like who I have her in my head. That's who I
Yeah.
like.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's like the light bulb just went off.
and not who and not who she really is, because who she is like, just that's like every picture. That's all I like. She was like you could see all her teeth in the pictures. You could see everything. She was just always bright and just always smile. I'm sure they told her to do that, but she just didn't look miserable. She just looked like, she just was always happy. And I was like, you know what, that's what I want my baby to be, always happy, just always smiling, like just be like that. And then, if I talked to her and she's like, yeah, I regret it, I shouldn't have did it, I'm like, let me just keep what we have here in our brains, and that be that. I'm not curious. I'm not that curious to know. But I did the same thing. Like I don't want to ever hold anything or any secrets from my child and them wanting to know. I want them, if they want to know, I want them to know. So I did make sure that option was available, but I was okay. I didn't, I'm okay. We can just see the pictures and see how she is, like you are, and she can be in my phone, and this is how she is, and just say okay. So I'm okay with that. They're okay with that too. Um, any other thoughts, comments that you would like to say?
um, I don't think so. I think we covered pretty much everything, unless there was any other questions.
But does anybody have any questions in down there? I think we're good. I want to thank you, Heather. If y'all are wanting to see more